Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. Inside the Set is a series that focuses on the design and decor of stories that excite us and ignite our imaginations, where we get to discuss the collaborations between production designers and set decorators, and hear firsthand accounts of how those works of art came to be, from their inception to ideas on the page through completion, where we sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. I'm Rosemary Brandenburg SDSA. Today, I'm so pleased to welcome set decorator Regina SDSA and production designer Howard Cummings to discuss their creative collaboration for the Prime Video hit series Fallout. Regina and Howard, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to talk about it.
I loved binge watching this series over the last few days. It deals with serious post-apocalyptic themes, of course, based on the game Fallout, but it goes further than the game, from what I understand, although I don't know the game. It's like a new iteration rather than a repeat of the game episodes. Howard, were there a lot of differences?
I was really grateful that we weren't strictly recreating, a specific game. Ours was very closely based on Fallout 4, and the look of it and the feel of it. But the storyline, it had to have all the history because there's a lot of history to the Fallout thing. It's like Lord of the Rings, the layers of factions and people, and I had no idea when I started. So we had the opportunity to do stuff that wasn't strictly in the game. And, for instance, a good style example is in the beginning, an opening sequence, you're in the Hollywood Hills, and it's the Hollywood Hills house, and it's somebody who has some money. And in the game, it's funny, a lot of the beginning of the game has a Vault-Tec salesman who's a guy who goes around trying to sell you a Fallout shelter. He comes around in suburban neighborhood and it's knocking on people's doors. So you start with a house. And so for this, because it was LA, and LA, it's not in any of the games. So we'd never seen what futuristic LA looked like. And that house is actually in Nyack. And it was a really well restored mid-century house. It was beautiful, all glass. What's going to happen following in this picture is this idealistic birthday party for this kid. And in moments, an atomic bomb is going to take that all away. And I kept thinking, like, what's the best place? What's the worst place you want to be in an atomic bomb blast? And that's a glass house. The house was beautiful and also really hard to work in because every surface was like immaculate. And if you put your finger on the fireplace, the oil of your finger would ruin the patina of the stone. And, it's like very difficult to work in. What Regina did is took this very mid-century kind of case study looking thing that has lots of hard edges and stuff, and then infused this color and shapes of the furniture, all kind of rounded, and it's very, it gives you this sense of playfulness. She worked really closely with the illustrator on this, which was great. She would find a piece of furniture and send it to him, and then she would also tell him, it's not quite right. And it was great because we really got to see the concepts really did end up looking like what you saw when you walked on the set.
So basically what all the vaults were based on was the home of the future. And it was kind of like, if you bought your vault, you would be able to choose what kind of flooring you want, what kind of wallpaper you wanted, what kind of curtain you wanted. Everything was furnished. All the patterns are over exaggerated. Howard, worked with the graphic designer and we would print out, Howard would find a design that he liked and we would print it out in different sizes because everything in the game is over exaggerated. As you can tell, everything was bright and big pattern. So he would work with Holly and she would print out different sizes and different colors to see how things would work. And we would put it up in the room and then we would get the fabrics. And a lot of the fabric I would buy from artists on Spoonflower and they would be really helpful in making the pattern bigger for us or smaller. And I never even heard of Fallout, but once you're in the game, we had to be true to the game and the gamers because there are so many big Fallout fans out there. So every piece we wanted to be authentic, and we wanted the fans to just be happy with it. So all like the artwork that you see on the wall, those are all in the actual game, and they were assets that were given to us by Bethesda, and we made sure that we, printed up the artwork that's actually inside the game, because we wanted the gamers to see it, and every little detail, you see like on the side around the windows and everything. Howard wanted you to feel like you were inside this game.
See the metal strip in the floor? The game is made in a 12 by 12 cube. Like you can build your own vault in a 12 by 12 cube. So we actually followed the rules of how we built the sets. We didn't just draw them. We actually built it like you were, as if you did it, virtually
Through the game. So the other thing, a lot of the lighting fixtures we matched to the game. We had the ones that I couldn't find, that were impossible to find, we had built. Well, the lighting was custom. A lot of like the lampshades and things that you see have the Vault-Tec logo on them, or like Vault 33. So there are a lot of little details that you wouldn't notice unless you were inside and playing this game. There's a lot of like little Easter eggs inside the game. Like we had research plastered everywhere of like the little Broxo, cleansers, or like Giddy Up Buttercup, the horse. We made sure we had models of the horse. The Nuka soda bottles that Props, had manufactured, bottle caps, like any little thing that you would find in the game, we tried to put somewhere inside of our vaults and outside in the wasteland so people could see it.
I love looking at this picture because, well, you can see New York beyond. This is in the Steiner back lot, quote unquote. They have a container yard, and this was all done like in the middle of New York City. This was such a huge job for Decorator, for Regina, huge. And I just let her tell you the amount of stuff in here, and the amount of, we're fortunately, we had Joe Alfieri at this point, and it was like they were willing to work with all this amazing stuff Regina found.
That was a really great set. That was called Philly. And I remember when Howard first brought us, we had Howard had this big wall in our conference/lunchroom in the art department. And he had a big floor, plan of the back lot, and then all these drawings over it. And we all came in for a meeting. He's like, okay, this is going to be Philly. We're going to build Philly on the back lot. And I thought he meant Philly. I was like, Philadelphia. He's like, no, Philly, like it's built on a landfill. It's a city built on a landfill. There was a bathhouse. There was
yeah, each of these are shops.
There were all different shops. There was Ma June's. It was the supply house. There were bathrooms. It was like the apothecary. It was the barber shop / dentist. It was all of these different buildings that had a theme, and they were all dressed inside and out. And then also Props, I can't take full credit for this. They brought in these tremendous like trailers and burnt out buses. And, it was such a collaboration between the art directors that designed this, and they designed it all out of like just different sort of scraps. And they would say, okay, this is built. The reference that they were going by, I think, was from Fallout 4, maybe Diamond City or something.
Yeah, it's a combination of Diamond City and this other place, Megaton City. Yep. That airplane, that's real. Regina got that plane nose, and you can see that thing is 48 feet in the air, by the way. So there's a whole lot of steel holding it up, but that was like just getting that thing. And I insisted that thing be real, which was, I got a lot of flack for, but I said, you're going to see it, and you do clearly. So it helps.
Regina, can you talk a little bit more about those stores you did there, like Ma June's? I loved that. That was so good.
Yeah, Ma June's was so much fun. And of course, I didn't shop this myself. I had, a great assistant, Monica Mayorga and Amanda Finnegan, shopping, for this with me. And like I said, props were a huge help, graphics. But Ma June's, that's also, we found like going through the game and finding a little bit of research in the game. There are a lot of different general stores that sell this kind of surplus. So we wanted to make sure that inside Ma June's, they had, you saw things in her store that you would see in the game. I mean, and we layered that. The good thing about this set, well, there were good things and bad things. We had time to dress it. But we were building it on, blacktop surrounded by these containers. It was so hot. It was like maybe the 3 hottest weeks of the year. We had a medic out there. There were people that were, I mean, 120 or something inside the thing. But anyway, we layered so much. So we just found like old bikes, and all of the cabinets and everything were all vintage, and we just scoured scrap metal shops and different things that we thought that they would sell there. And we have a lot of Pip Boys and bobbleheads. Everything had to be specific. Old computers, fans, different things that these people would scour for, and they would pay for with there were magazines in there, but they would pay for everything either with like their teeth or bottle caps. And it was just so full. I mean, this store was just jam-packed, and I just thought it looked fantastic.
Well, there were a lot of really great interiors and exteriors, and that market on the way to Philly, I guess you'd say. I mean, my God, with dog meat and iguana meat and all kinds of unsavory characters, it's the Wild West. Tell us a little bit of how this came about.
Besides looking at the game and references from the game, we also, we'd also look at real things. And poking around, found this junkyard in New Jersey, and it's called Wade Salvage, and it was open just after World War II and closed, like I think in the early 70s. So for retrofuturism, everything in this scrapyard was period correct, which was incredible. These cars, I think, were shortly after World War II. I saw pictures of it. They've been there so long, the forest grew up through them. So you couldn't put these cars in there. And and the patina of all this is just amazing, right? You can see there's 1960s buses with airplanes stacked on top of them. I said, we have to use this. This is incredible. It was, I mean, it's just so fantastic. And then Regina dressed all this stuff, and they made these, little shelters for the vendors and all that stuff. The problem was that you walk through this and then you go into the set. So everything in the set had to be as good as this place, which was really setting the bar really high. Amy Westcott's a costume designer. She did some amazing costumes, all made, and so we would go back and forth, like Regina would talk to her, the props would talk to her. That was really a fun thing to do, that market. So.
Well, I completely agree that Amy's work was superb, and I'm sure, Regina, she wanted to talk to you quite a bit about colors. How did that go?
The palettes were all on the same kind of plane with her. So like when we were inside, things were bright and kind of retro, and then again, when we did Barb and Coop, she knew that we were going to use the bright colors, and she played off that with all the 50s clothing, and then when you see the Brotherhood of Steel, that's kind of all like the maroons and the washed out grays and the clothing, that all the leather and stuff. But it was fun to see it all come together, like see the set. Seeing the set dressed is one thing, but then seeing the props in it and seeing the people in the costume, that's what's really rewarding, like just brings everything to life.
Besides shooting in New York, I also begged Regina to go to Utah for the Brotherhood of Steel, because it was such a beautiful look. And she got there, and the work she did there, it was just amazing.
I had a great assistant there named Roger, and Roger is the one who made the great obstacle course. He made all of the flagpoles out of wood. He found like so many great things from like the locals out there. And we were in the middle of nowhere in Wendover. But just the setting there, like being on the salt flats, and just couldn't make anything more beautiful than what it was, just because of the way everything looked out there.
By the time I got there, Regina goes, "I love it here. It's so beautiful." She was like, so it's the opposite of Manhattan.
So this was a retired military base that you guys were able to use as a location?
Yeah, and so like the bomb craters or stuff, like the construction department just use foam. I mean, literally, we're kind of out of money at this point. Foam cut into shape.
Yeah, all of that was on the military base, and they allowed us to use whatever we wanted.
Well, Regina charmed them into like
Yeah.
Of course, you also did these cool flying craft. I guess I call it a helicopter.
called a vertibird. It's
Birdie
a,
bird.
yeah, a combination of a cross between if a osprey, which is the helicopters that have vertical rotating props. If an osprey had a marriage with a goldfish,
Right. And their sort of religious environment with their sort of cult.
this isn't in the game, by the way, but I just thought, I'm, got a Catholic background. So I thought, okay, we're going to do an altar, basically. I did a sketch, and then we had this great illustrator, Matt Sama, who took it, and it was like a whole thing, like, okay, where, it had to do with the wingspan, how big the wingspan was and the thing, and what kind of plane we would have to have the pieces from. And, it was actually fairly specific, including these wonderful throne chairs that those are all made of webbing from
From the airplanes, but you wanted the special propeller and the wings. I think in the end, our wings weren't wide enough, so we had to make them bigger. But the parachute in the back, but we found all the pieces. I don't know how we found all the pieces, but we did in the time frame that we had, and we had these great flags and everything made.
So the main locations then, obviously New York, some over in New Jersey, and then your Utah sets.
We also put up a digital stage in at the Gold Coast Studios in Long Island. And that was a whole learning experience, not only for me, for Regina. We were working in a digital volume, which hadn't been done in New York. We were sort of pioneering that. For people who don't know, it's like instead of green screen or blue screen, you have this basically giant room of televisions projecting the image. And so we do that. I remember the very first thing you had to do, Regina.
Was that our wedding? The cornfield?
Yes.
We had a lot of corn.
To be clear, this set is on a volume with
Yes.
with their crops. However, there's real set, which includes the corn, and then there's the projection.
Yeah, so it's supposed to look like a scene from Oklahoma. That's what the showrunner said. It's supposed to look artificial. It's interesting. So we're using the volume to give it this sort of storybook look. The reverse shot of this is the part of the vault
In
that
our
we-
stage.
in-
Yeah,
in our
it's
se- but also they had a digital version of it. So we had something that had to look very real next to something that was supposed to be artificial. Was an interesting thing.
The whole vault, I spent a lot of time in that vault, and there were so many different parts of it. The hallways from the vaults were just fabulous.
The tunnels were really good looking. And there's nothing in them, and they're so beautiful.
So, but all this lighting and the pipes, oh my God, the pipe schedules. Because even you see all the ceilings, they're all hard. There are only a couple sets that were tall enough to not have to have ceilings, but you feel the ceilings and everything, and all the schedule for the pipes and the hardware. And this was really intense.
How about that Red Rocket gas station? That's a pretty important set. Where was that?
Oh, that was so nice.
That station was a working gas station on kind of a busy road. I was pushing for this. I really wanted this. And I had to go beg them, the showrunners to actually, there were plenty of things. I said, please just put something there. And they listened to me, which was great. And because this is such an icon in the game and it's so cool. Paul Kramer, who was our location manager, and I said, I rejected everything he sent me. And then he sent me a picture of this, and I went like, because it had exact style. This is like this 50s thing. And I went with him, and I walked into the guy, and I just said, okay, how many days do I get? And he goes, what? And I go, how many days are you going to get me out of this? He was very kind of that kind of person. And he wanted to know, like, okay, I said, what is it going to be worthwhile for you? What will you give me? He goes, 5 days.
Well, Regina, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges for you on this project? I mean, you've certainly talked about how much work it was and how many layers you had to do, Regina, but what would you, if you were to say, what was the hardest or the most satisfying thing that you had to achieve?
there were so many sets we haven't even we haven't even touched upon. I think some of the biggest challenges maybe were that we didn't have some time in some things, and at the end, some things were being rewritten and things were added, and we needed to get things quickly. But otherwise, I think as a whole, the whole show was really satisfying, and it was a really great experience, and it was like something I've never done before. So
It was a lot though, and it did go on quite a long time, and it was like,
like 2 years. I think by the time we finished, I was almost on this job for like 2 years. Well, we started the other job, so it was like 2 years of being at Steiner Studios or something. But
In order to pull that kind of stuff off, Regina, obviously you have to really rely on a lot of amazing craftspeople that you work with, but also outside vendors. Was there anybody that you can call out, either SDSA business members or special crew people?
yeah, so many people. I mean, like I said, when here in New York, I worked with City Knickerbocker. They're the ones that put me in touch with the great people who made all of our custom light fixtures. Then I rented a bunch of stuff from them, Bridge Props, Fennec. And then when I went out to Utah, using like LCW and Omega and Warner Brothers, and I think I used like every prop house in LA to bring stuff out to Utah. And I'm sorry, if I'm forgetting anybody. Couldn't have done it without the help of everybody. And then of course, like the people that I worked with, my team, like my assistants and my lead man, and again, like the props and the art directors. I mean, I think we had a really great team. Eddie DeCurtis.
Eddie DeCurtis and his team. That Philly set was such a huge stress, and Regina's in the middle. It's like 104. There was so much stuff that had to go into the set. All the junk, for instance, that was 40 feet in the air, they had to make frames like skeletons, and each piece had to be wired on because of the wind shear there was really bad. And the set popped up above the protective container walls, and so that all had to be wired on and craned up with these giant cranes and stuck up there, piles and piles of garbage. That all had to be handleable and clean, but not look clean.
Well, the show is such a success. I mean, it was unbelievable to watch it. Binge watching it was definitely the way to go. I want to thank you guys for being here with us today for Inside the Set with Set Decor. And we really appreciate your time and all the work that you did. And we're glad to celebrate it with you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for getting the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.